Hey, you guys, we're going to play the quiet game, okay? I'm going to say that again because I bit my lip when I said my name. Hey guys, I'm so excited to share with you today how I increased my test scores by 21% in math just with math writing. Let's get started. I am so passionate about teaching writing during my math block. And the reason why is because there's so much research that tells us that writing in math helps students condense what they've learned, and it helps them reflect on their procedure, and it helps them retain what they learn. So we call that metacognition, where they're thinking about their thought process. I think about writing as an area rug. In the classroom, writing is the area rug, and it ties everything, all subjects together. So this is why you've got to incorporate writing during your math block, okay? And I'm going to talk about what I mean by quality writing and little writing. Little writing is responding to a word problem. That is not the type of math writing that I'm advocating. I am advocating for writing in math journals. So give me a heart if you agree that we need to be writing about math during our math blocks. Reflection is one of Marzano's high yield strategies, and that is one of the key factors for writing. Also, it gives you, the teacher, insight onto their procedural thinking, which you may not have gotten without reading their writing, because you've got all these students in your class. When you have time to talk one-to-one with each person about it? No, these are like having one-to-one conferences with your kids on your own time. You're going to be able to give them feedback too, and it's going to be meaningful feedback, okay? I'm going to tell you about a little bit about the year that I started doing this. I was able to loop up with my class from second grade to third grade. And we started math writing in second grade, and then I continued on into third grade, and the quality, the level of writing that they were doing by the end of their third grade math was insane. It was so good, and I have the test scores to reflect that too. So one of the first strategies that I do is I teach my kids that numbers are all around us. And they are. I was so bad at math when I got to middle school and high school, and I was bad at it because I didn't make the connection of math in the real world to the math that I was learning. And to me, that was such a huge key factor. So let's get our kids thinking about the numbers all around us. So for me, I think about, like, for kids, especially younger ones, the number of teeth they have lost. They are obsessed with telling us how many teeth they have lost. Let's say Logan, my son, he's only lost 2 teeth. So he can draw a 2 on his paper. So here's my 2. Now, what are some other things that, other numbers that kids have in the world? It could be their sports number. So for me growing up, 44 was my number. Again, I can draw that in the best way that I know how. I could write it numerically, or I can use base 10 blocks. Logan he likes to play a video game. It's Tag with Ryan. And he came up to me the other day. He was like, "Mama, look, I got this high score." And so he showed it to me, and it was like 4,000 points. This kid is so good at it. But if he were to show that on here, he'd probably write it out, just because he doesn't know that numerical value yet. So he'd write it like this. Now already, I'm not going to go through the whole gist, but already he has a math story. And this is how I begin teaching writing in math. So you can do your birthday. You can do your phone number. You can do your address. You know, when they ask you on those behavior quizzes if the student knows their address or not. And we're like, sometimes I know teachers are like, "How the heck would I know if they know their address?" Well, here's your opportunity to ask them, and then you'll know whether or not they know their address. their age, their how many teeth they've lost, their phone number. Those are all numbers that you can use to begin making their math story. Sorry. The next thing, so after we begin that, okay, we start building stamina. And we start building stamina with 1 minute, a quick write about math. We start with our narratives. In the first 9 weeks, narratives are our big focus. And so I like to focus on narratives in the first 9 weeks with math because it ties in with their social emotional learning. And as a teacher, part of that social emotional learning, and I like to think about it like an onion. Okay, so you're going to start with those narratives and that emotional part because when students come into math, they either believe that they're really good at it or they're really bad at it. And they know these things because they hear it from their parents. Well, I was bad at math, so you're going to be bad at math too. Or that's not exactly what they say, but that's the message that students tend to receive. So students come in to school with these preconceived ideas about how they will perform in math. So by starting with the narrative, you're peeling back that emotional layer of their learning so that eventually you can get to their core to help them understand, hey, you're actually really good and you can do this. We start with our stamina with 1 minute quick write, and then we build up minute by minute till we get to 10 to 15 to 20 minutes. And I encourage my students to write about their feelings towards math. Particularly, we start with a broad topic, math. Why do you like math? Why do you think you might be bad at math? What parts of math do you not like? And we get to the nitty-gritty of their personality. And that gives me insight so that if I'm teaching a concept and I'm like, oh, by the way, I know that sometimes it's kind of tricky and we don't like doing it this way, but let me show you how we can change that. So that helps me get that. And I put on here, I encourage writing about feelings versus mathematical concepts because it may be abstract right now, too abstract to learn about or to write about mathematical concepts because they're just getting started. So by the second 9 weeks, we go into our opinion-based writing. And our opinion-based writing in math can be about feelings, but now I'm starting to take that next step into conceptual writing about their understanding. So I do this by asking questions like, which model do you believe is most helpful? Explain why or why not. So if I were in 5th grade and I'm teaching multiplying decimals by the tenths or dividing numbers into decimals, which model would be most beneficial to the student? Would it be the hundreds block or a number line? Some kids prefer the number line because they think more linear, and other kids would prefer the hundreds block because it's more of a visual thing. So that kind of gives you insight as to what type of learner they are, but also it's again that metacognition where they start reflecting on their learning and they're able to communicate that on paper. Once they do that, they're able to retain what they've learned, and then they can have real, authentic arguments with their peers.
1, 2, 3, everybody freeze. Now, click the subscribe button.
So some of my opinion-based writing topics are which model is most helpful, which model is most confusing. Do you think that subtraction is something we should learn in school? Why or why not? Oh, here's a good one, controversial. Do you think that regrouping should be taught in school? Why or why not? Or borrowing? Should we call it borrowing or regrouping? How do you feel when your parents help you at home with math? Why or why not? So these are legit writing topics that we can infuse during our literacy centers and also during our math block. And then that third 9 weeks, by the time we hit third 9 weeks, we are ready to rock and roll with writing about math concepts. And this is where we get into informative writing. And so what I love to do is I will have a math concept and I'll have my students rewrite how to do that concept in 3 or fewer steps. Just rewrite, how do you do it in 3 or fewer steps? Explain how to do it. Then they can create their own visual, like an anchor chart. And if you give them anchor chart paper, they will be so motivated to complete that writing and share it with the class. So some of the things that I do for informative writing are explain how to do multiplication in 3 steps. Explain why you can model a problem and have a person get it incorrect. Explain why so-and-so got this problem incorrect. What could he or she have done to get the correct answer? Describe 2 ways to subtract. Which way do you think is easier? So again, that's kind of integrating a little bit more of that opinion-based writing. And all of those are so beneficial for social emotional learning. And you may not realize that you are even integrating that into your math, but you are. Also, when you are doing math writing, encourage your students to use pictures, use charts, use models, because again, that visual helps them reflect on their learning and it helps them store what they've learned in their brain. After the round is up and students have completed the writing, I never just take it and say, hey, I'm going to share it. Normally before our center or our round, whatever you want to call it, ends, I will walk around the class and I will ask I'll look for really good examples that first 9 weeks and I'll find my really good writers and I'll kind of nudge them and say, hey, Cynthia, do you think that I could share this writing with the class? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, yeah, share it, because they want to be acknowledged and show that they're accomplished in something. So I will put it up on the Promethean and I'll say, boys and girls, this is a great example of how Cynthia did her math writing today. She wrote the number 2 because that was the amount of teeth that she lost. And I really love how she represented 44 using place value blocks. Did anybody else use place value blocks? Jaden, great. I'm so proud that you did too. Wow, guys, look, Cynthia knows this number right here, 4,235. That is a large number in the thousands. Cynthia, what a great job. I'm so proud of you. Boys and girls, I'll be looking for great writing like that during our next round. Please be sure to do your best writing, and I can't wait to share it with the rest of the class. And so that's kind of how we get them I encourage them to start writing about math. And they're like, okay, this is cool. This is cool. So eventually, when we start doing more of our informative writing and it's more conceptual, that's where we start doing our think, pair, shares. And so students will sit with a partner and they'll say things like, I agree with Rhonda because da-da-da-da-da, or I disagree with her because da-da-da-da-da. And then they'll share with the class. So I give them 1 minute to think about it, 1 minute to share with a partner, and 1 minute to share with the class. And I literally use my watch. I will go, okay, you have 3 minutes, and I'll 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. And that's how we do our think, pair, shares. And so I encourage you to get started with math journals this year. It may look like a different format if you're doing blended learning or doing it online, but you can still do it. You can still have that dialogue with your students and give them prompts. I'm not sure if I mentioned this or not, but I like to display my prompts on the smartboard so that my students see that while they're working in their centers. And they can think about it and know, so that my students who do have a hard time, they have a little bit longer to process that before they get started writing.
Well, thanks so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video today. Let us know. Make sure you like and comment below with something that you've learned. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you soon. Bye.